crouching behind cars, and this guy was just shooting wantonly out the window. So I think that these guns should not be manufactured. They should not be available for sale in the United States. We have enough guns as it is, and if the number of guns is any indication of the safety of a country or a city or a state, we would be the safest country in the world because we have more guns than any country in the world.
There is the argument, as you well know, that criminals like that gunman last night would be able to get their hands on weapons illegally, no matter how strong any gun laws or background checks are. To that, you say what?
Well, that's the NRA. That's the NRA stance. I disagree with it. I think now is the time. And again, I hope that we're not just doing this in vain. Because after Sandy Hook, I thought there would be substantive changes in our laws and in our attitudes, and that didn't work. And the incidents in Dayton and El Paso, are other indications that we have too much weaponry and too much access to it, and people who are either criminals or deranged have the ability to get them, and it's horrible. I mean, two of our officers were trapped on the second floor of this house while the gunman was shooting up through the floorboards, trying to hit them. It was a terrible day, but it turned out to be a miraculous day because we didn't lose anyone. We didn't lose any civilians. We had to evacuate daycares. We had a library. People were sheltered in place. We had all kinds of businesses were shut down with people locked inside them for 5, 6, 7 hours. We went through this, and it was very much almost a terrible tragedy in our city. One guy was grazed in the head. And just a millimeter or so to the other side, and he's no longer with us. And it's really heartbreaking.
Yeah, Mayor Kenny, I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Anderson. Take care.
Well, just to add tonight, Congressman Steve King demands an apology from a top Republican over her reaction to comments he made yesterday, just not for the comments he made about rape and incest benefiting the population.
I'll tell you the Woodstock story. 500,000 kids and not one umbrella.
We didn't have tickets. We just had the clothes we were wearing.
Join CNN's Bill Weir on a journey across America. Music.
What does it say that the guys who gave us the most beautiful harmonies ever don't speak to each other?
And generations.
You think this crowd could change the world? Everybody seemed to have almost religious belief in peace and love. Well, what's the legacy?
CNN Special Report. Woodstock at 50, Sunday on CNN.
The passion of sport, the pressure of competition, the focus it demands.
When you're in that ring for that 90 seconds, everything else just kind of fades away. You're focused on you and your horse.
Follow all of the drama in the Longines Global Champions Tour and Global Champions League as the best show jumpers in the world compete for the top prize. CNN Equestrian Global Champions, Saturday on CNN.
This is the 100 Club, our look at companies that are 100 years old or older. The dark, cramped archives at Encyclopedia Britannica feel like hallowed ground.
We have business records and logs, minutes of boards meetings going back to the late 19th century. So it's really quite an array of a mirror, in essence, of the history of the West. Encyclopedia Britannica was founded in Edinburgh, Scotland in 1768.
In 2018, Britannica celebrated 250 years in business with a special anniversary edition, honoring the past, but still looking far to the future.
We feed off our past in order to get our momentum for the future, and that's very exciting.
All new African Voices Changemakers. Create opportunities. Impact communities. Transform lives. Artists using movement and words to pass on life lessons.
There's something empowering about somebody who knows who they are. That sense of self is magic.
African Voices Changemakers. Sunday on CNN.
Business never sleeps. As the sun sets in Seoul and Shanghai, deals are signed in Dubai, and Europe is already in play. New York prepares to make its first move. I'm Julia Chatterley, journalist, global market analyst, and host of CNN's newest
Darfur in London, and this is CNN.
Republican Congressman Steve King is asking for a, quote, full public apology from the number 3 ranking Republican in the House, and it has nothing to do with his comment he made yesterday to a group of conservatives in Iowa about the benefit he believes to the population of rape and incest.
What if we went back through all the family trees and just pulled those people out that were products of rape and incest? Would there be any population of the world left if we did that? Considering all the wars and all the rape and pillage that's taken place and whatever happened in culture after society, I know I can't certify that I'm not part of a product of that.
Now, King says 2 media outlets misquoted him, although his claim has nothing to do with what you heard there. His claim refers to an AP correction on something else he said at the same event. But that was enough for King to claim vindication and demand that Congresswoman Liz Cheney apologize for calling his comments appalling and bizarre and for demanding his ouster. Congressman King has previously skated by after saying awful, sometimes racist and misogynistic things, but he's up for re-election, so we sent 360's Randy Kay to Iowa to hear what his constituents think about his latest remarks.
I don't know who's voting for him. Literally everyone I know just rolls their eyes and can't believe the things that come out of his mouth.
In Ames, Iowa, part of Congressman Steve King's 4th congressional district, we heard that a lot, especially in light of his most recent comments, suggesting humanity may not exist if it weren't for rape or incest.
It seems over the top crazy. It doesn't seem like in this day and age we could have people speaking like that.
What do you make of Steve King's latest comments?
Well, I'm shocked but not surprised. He's an embarrassment to this community, to Iowa, to the Congress, and he needs to be gone.
It's hard to wrap your head around. That's definitely a different take on things.
This Republican voter says enough is enough.
I really do think it's almost a little crazy. You know, I can't believe that anyone would consider that as a real thought these days. So it just doesn't make any sense at all.
Do you think it's time for him to resign?
I really do. And I think that if he doesn't resign, he should be removed.
This voter told us King's comments were disrespectful to women.
We keep trying to work for women's rights, equal pay, all that kind of stuff, raising children and working, all of that's hard. And then when you get comments like that on top of it, it's just very degrading and kind of sets women back.
What makes you think twice about voting for him?
Statements such as that seem a little extreme. So I think he isn't thinking before he's speaking in a lot of situations and doesn't really seem to care who he might offend.
Still, King does have support here. Republican Ron Bartlett, a barber in town, plans to vote for King again, though his own comments left us scratching our heads.
Obviously, there's been incest everywhere. In every family, somebody has somebody that they wish they hadn't been around.
Every family?
Many families. I hope my family doesn't, but
he's made the state of Iowa almost at times a laughingstock state because we have put this man in office over and over and over.
A laughingstock because King has over the years defended white supremacy, embraced nativism, even pushed the Great Replacement conspiracy theory, suggesting some shadowy group is working behind the scenes to reduce the white population. Back at the barber shop, Ron Bartlett tells us he can let all of that go.
I'm not saying he isn't racist. I think everybody has that much racist in them.
Why is it okay with you that somebody who you think is even that much of a racist is in Congress?
You ought to be able to do some things without having everybody climb down your throat, I think.
So it's okay for you to have him in Congress?
I think it's okay for me.
It's not okay with this Republican voter who voted for King before, but won't again, based on his recent comments.
It's just way over the top.
So this time around, he will not have your vote?
No, not this time. I want any other Republican or any other Democrat to run. I'll vote for anybody else but Steve King.
And today, Anderson King responded to Congresswoman Liz Cheney on Twitter. As you know, she called his comments appalling and bizarre. She said it was time for him to go. She said that the people in his district here in Iowa deserve better. So his response on Twitter to her today was this, quote, "I believe all life is sacred regardless of the circumstances of conception. Liz Cheney finds that appalling and bizarre. My position was endorsed by a bipartisan 174 members. Liz, you helped kill the heartbeat bill when we had the votes to pass it." So Anderson, he certainly seems to be shifting the blame here and certainly not backing down from those comments he made yesterday.
Randy Cade, thanks very much. Appreciate it. Up next, story of love, loss, and hope. His wife died in the El Paso shooting. Now strangers are answering his call for help.
It's a metaphor for everyday life. What I would like to do is inspire other people to take on their own Everest.
It's a very unique environment to be in. There's a lot of emotion here right now.
I was just doing such a letdown.
The journey continues.
I don't think I've ever seen anywhere quite like this. This is otherworldly.
It's a bit scary here, to be honest. Today really was the never-ending day.
The Challenge Everest, Sunday on CNN.
Denise Ho was one of the most prominent faces of the pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong, a city where protesters are fighting for greater freedom from mainland China.
This is only the beginning.
She has taken their cause to the world stage, angering Beijing. This month, we sit down with the singer-turned-activist in Hong Kong as the city faces its worst political turmoil in decades.
Some protesters are calling for a revolution. Is that what is happening right now?
Talk Asia, Wednesday on CNN.
Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon.
You've called what Jeff Bezos has built a miracle.
Absolute miracle. Amazon. It's everywhere in your life.
Amazon's become an invasive species.
What's the real cost of your car?
I think they have monopoly power.
Company insiders talk with CNN.
They say that you are the most powerful man in the cloud.
Who at Amazon hears what I tell Alexa when I'm talking to her?
CNN Special Report, The Age of Amazon, Saturday on CNN.
Many of the statues ISIS toppled were fakes.
$500 for 2 children. Just sold us like that.
She's got to really be happy.
This ship has been
What does that indicate?
What's a typical day like? Will there be any sanctions?
Robin nominated with a surreal period.
I'm Cyril Vanier in Paris, and this is CNN.
A 61-year-old El Paso man will bury his wife this weekend, 2 weeks after she and 21 others were murdered in that city. Theirs was in every way a remarkable love story. Married for a little more than 2 decades, they traveled the country together until deciding to settle in El Paso. He had no one but her, no living relatives. He says she was his last close connection in this world, literally his one and only. The idea of burying her alone might have been too much for him. Luckily, blessedly, it will be the one burden he will not have to bear because, as our Gary Tuckman discovered, he has friends, many friends that he never even knew he had.
Tony Basco loved only one person in the world, and now she's gone. And she loved you a lot.
The reason I'll tell you, well, you know why, what we can sing in sometimes. So we had wonderful years. The best years of my whole life.
Tony has no other family. His wife, Margie Ricard, had just a few family members, but none in the El Paso area. Attendance at her funeral was expected to be minimal until the internet took over. Tweets from journalists and media outlets sent out messages of support for Tony. Then there was this Facebook post from the funeral home, reading, Mr. Antonio Basco was married 22 years to his wife, Margie Ricard. He had no other family. He welcomes anyone to attend his wife's services. People from all over the United States have contacted the funeral home, as well as Tony, to say they plan to attend Margie's funeral.
There are going to be hundreds of people here probably from all around the country. How does that make you feel?
I love it. I mean, it's nice to see people really caring about people. There's going to be a lot of people there. Tony, of course.
They had been married for 22 years. Tony says his life had been very difficult prior to meeting her.
What would you like people to know about Margie?
She was a caring, loving, the most beautifulest person.
Every day now he goes to the memorial site next to the Walmart, taking exquisite care of Margie's memorial, making sure the flowers and the wind chimes, which he always loved so much, look the best they can.
Where did you meet her?
Omaha, Nebraska, in a bar.
You were single, she was single?
Yeah.
And was it love at first sight?
Oh man, you couldn't say.
Tony is still waking up each morning in disbelief that she is gone.
I sit at my table looking at the front door, just waiting for her to walk in. I've even tried calling her on the phone.
You have?
I've tried to.
At the memorial site, Tony tells Margie that someday he will meet her in heaven.
What you got to do up there? I wish you'd tell me something.
Tony is now beginning a new life alone. But for at least one day at Margie's funeral, he won't be.
She made me the happiest man in the world, and the luckiest. There's nobody luckier than me in this whole world.
Anderson, Tony spends a lot of time right here, hours a day, visiting Margie. He wants to be as close as he can to her, even though she's not alive anymore. And it's important to point out that when he's here, people now know him. They come up to him, they hug him, they shake his hand, they talk to him, and he takes very great comfort with that. Anderson.
It is so moving. It's so great that so many people are going to show up and honor her life. Gary, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Great story. Up next, a 360 special, my hour-long conversation with Stephen Colbert.
And I'll give the floor to Clarissa Ward, CNN international correspondent.
Thank you so much. I've been a war correspondent for more than 10 years in every terrible conflict that you can think of, but I have never seen anything on the scale like this. This is happening right here, right now. Life is dangerous. There are snipers all around. Is that what they want?
This is something we have to do.
This is one of the most unique environments on Earth. How many hours have you been on the boat? It's a humanitarian crisis. We're by the day. You've got to do justice to the story. How has your life been affected? I won't say you ever really make peace with it, but you can bear witness. There are very little signs of normal human life. You can't not feel some level of personal impact. Clarissa Ward, CNN, London.
Today we live in an unpredictable environment and news races around the world at breakneck speed. Are you playing with fire? My show brings you the latest news and top newsmakers.
How are you? I do not understand the United States.
And we also dive below the headlines to explore vital issues impacting our lives.
It's about right and wrong.
Does love have a chance somewhere?
I would always believe that.
I'm on board. Today on CNN.
Excuse me, miss, you dropped this.
It's just a penny.
Just a penny? Just a penny? It all begins with the humble penny. Whether writing your first check or cashing big checks. To those at the top, making their mark, closing deals round the clock. On Quest Means Business, we know every penny has power. And it's not how many you have, it's what you do with them that counts. That's the marvel of money. Quest Means Business. What a profitable hour!
I'm Jim Cars, and this is CNN.
Welcome to this 360 special, the Stephen Colbert interview. He's been a familiar face in comedy, of course, for more than a decade, starting off in improv, then becoming a regular correspondent on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. Then came The Colbert Report, a satirical nightly talk show where he played the role of an ultra-conservative host. In 2015, Stephen Colbert inherited the coveted late-night spot on CBS, where David Letterman had reigned for more than 20 years. All eyes and pressure were on Colbert as he stopped playing a character and started being himself. After the 2016 election, Stephen Colbert really hit his stride as his show tried to make sense of the often nonsensical world of politics. The audience has responded, and Stephen Colbert is now #1 in late-night television. There's a lot, though, you probably don't know about Stephen Colbert, his life, and what he's been through. He is as intellectual and interesting as he is funny. Over the next hour, you'll hear our in-depth interview. Stephen opens up about his life, his losses, his comedy, and his faith. So there's a bunch I want to talk to you about, and
the gotchas.
yes,
Here come
exactly.
the main.
I have this document here.
Gotcha
Right,
questions. Yeah.
Let me just ask you about stuff that it was in the news. Ken Cuccinelli.
Oh my God. I blame you for Ken Cuccinelli.
He was on CNN.
A lot.
Yes.
A lot. I didn't watch much when he was
Yeah.
on. Because
Yes.
there's a certain, I love your show. You know, every night I come home, my wife and I have like a glass of wine, handful of nuts, watch Will Anderson, go to bed. That's it. That's how I end my day.
Handful of nuts.
A handful of nuts, just
Okay.
a little bit. You know, I got to stay in the suit. I
Okay.
can't come home
Okay.
and binge out.
Right.
And there are a few panelists that I can't.
Yes.
I got to skip over. I got to skip over some of them. Cuccinelli would be one of them.
If any other person in an administration, in a prior administration, had rewritten the words of Emma Lazarus's poem,
Yes.
which presidents from time immemorial have quoted with great reverence, it would be an outrage. It would be, people's heads would explode, understandably, because
Yes.
it is a fundamental bedrock marker of who we are.
Yes. There's our physical Constitution, and then there's our physical Bill of Rights, and certainly there's the physical Declaration of Independence, but there's also this emotional Constitution that America has. There's an emotional reality that we all share that makes us all Americans, and one of them is things like the New Colossus, the poem that Emma Lazarus wrote on the Statue of Liberty, and I mean, we're constantly being told by this administration, you don't see what you see, you don't hear what you hear. Now they're saying you don't feel what you feel. You don't actually feel that. And you don't actually believe that this is a nation of immigrants.
You called President Trump a heretic.
To reality.
To reality.
Heretic to reality. As a raised Catholic, you know, the greatest sin is actually heresy, because not only do you not only are you astray from the right path, you're encouraging other people to come with you on that path. But specifically, heresy is like proselytizing for the devil.
And the punishment for heretics is sort of the most extreme.
I think it's red hot iron coffins in Dante's Inferno. The area, I think it's called Dis. I think that's the part of the level of hell that they're in. So it's pretty bad. And
doesn't get much worse.
No. Yeah, the worst spot treatment. Yeah. And our president, wants to live in a fantasy world where only the way he perceives the world is the way it is, and only things that sort of serve his vision. And he's also trying to convince us that that is the only world that exists. It's extremely solipsistic. But he's also trying to invite us into this madness that he has. And that's heresy against reality. That is proselytizing for the most selfish and the basest instincts that the American people, like all people, have. But he is not appealing to the better angels of our nature.
I've heard you say that the thesis of your show has become essentially, hey, you're not crazy.
Right.
That's the
thesis. The audience is not crazy. How you feel is actually how you feel. How you think is actually how you think. What you see is actually happening. What you hear is actually what he said.
And I do think that's part of the appeal. I mean, with news and what we do every night, you know, people at a certain point get exhausted.
Yeah, I don't know how you
do it.
Let me ask you a question. Yeah. How do you do it every night? Because I have the relief of doing jokes.
Right.
And I'm not taking anything away from the ridiculous.
But still,
please understand that.
But still,
you know,
yes.
you know, you had to look at this. I had the absurdo chart.
but still,
how do you keep going?
Well, I mean, even though you're in comedy, though, you are still doing the same pace that we are in news.
Right. We do 5 nights a week. Right. An hour a night, which is
whatever, you know, in comedy, normally people spend all day, or in some cases, if they only have one show a week, all week writing the material and thinking it and honing it. You have to change stuff 15 minutes before air, 5 minutes